One of the things I find so fascinating about the world of art is seeing where someone's career starts and where they progress. Not just with filmmaking or directors per se, but anybody in the art field.
Like, you think Rembrandt started out painting stuff like this? No, it's probably more like this here.
But with directors specifically, it's impressive regardless because movies, even the smallest ones, are a massive undertaking.
There's just so much that goes into them. Even a micro-budget movie will require countless man-hours and a small fortune in their own right. That's why it's worth noting when a director is able to keep their vision and style consistent throughout their career. They start out on something smaller, but once Hollywood launches a couple $100 million at them, they are essentially just doing the same thing on a bigger scale.
There are countless examples of this, from Steven Spielberg to James Cameron to Sam Raimi, but one I've always had a keen fascination with is James Gunn, the man Hollywood loves to hate but hate that they love.
Starting out as a screenwriter in the late 90s writing for Troma, the first film he ever wrote was Romeo and Juliet, which he co-wrote with Lloyd Kaufman. For this, he was paid a whopping $150. But after a few years of bumming around with Troma writing TV episodes, he wrote another feature that was put into production, The Specials, a superhero comedy film. And while the film failed to garner any real mainstream attention, it did turn a few heads in Hollywood and managed to land him a few more high-profile jobs. The most notable of these being a writer for the Scooby-Doo movies and the Dawn of the Dead remake. Then, just a couple short years later, he finally got the chance to do what he always wanted to: direct. Stepping behind the camera in 2006, he directed a screenplay he had written, the sci-fi horror comedy Slither. While it wasn't a hit at the box office, it did receive fairly solid reviews, which were able to establish Gunn as a reputable up-and-coming director. It also featured the first of frequent collaborators of Gunn, such as Nathan Fillion and Michael Rooker. This also solidified the style of filmmaking Gunn would be known for, mixing high genres with comedy. Gunn's next project would be writing and directing the film Pets, a comedy in which a man is abducted by aliens and turned into a household pet. The film was slated for a 2009 release and would have big names attached, such as Ben Stiller acting as a producer. Unfortunately, the film never got off the ground, with Gunn stating, "Pets, unfortunately, is done. I'm gone. I left the project for various reasons. I hope it sees the light of day somehow, but it won't be with me attached as director." But he didn't stay stagnant for too long. He soon began work on another film. This time, another low-budget superhero script he had been working on since 2002. The project was called Super, about a man named Frank whose wife is abducted by the mob and he becomes his own superhero named the Crimson Bolt to try and get her back. When showing the script to his then-wife, Jenna Fisher, she recommended it to her friend Rainn Wilson, as the two co-starred on The Office. Reading the script on The Office set, Wilson loved it and agreed to the part. He then sent the script to his Juno co-star Elliot Page, who signed on for the role of the sidekick Bolty. To round out the cast, there was Liv Tyler, Kevin Bacon, Michael Rooker, and Nathan Fillion. Bacon was a last-minute addition to the film in the role of the mob boss Jacques, as it was originally cast with Jean-Claude Van Damme, who Gunn recast because the guy was kind of AWOL. I couldn't risk that personality type on this movie. Gunn had been trying to get the script developed since he wrote it, but could never find financing due to it being so violent and profane. The film began shooting in December 2009 and wrapped the next year in January 2010. Also, side note, a lot of people say this is very similar to Kick-Ass, and yeah, they're about superheroes with no powers and they came out at like the exact same time, but when you watch them, they're wildly different. Gunn and Mark Millar, the creator of Kick-Ass, have both commented on this and denied plagiarizing the other. Miller even screened Super at his comic book convention in London. Gunn stated, "It sucks on one hand, and then on the other hand, who gives a shit? There are 4,000 bank heist movies. We can have 5 superheroes without powers movies."
So we can see Gunn stepping out of the light of his Troma-era projects and getting bigger and bigger names attached. One of the stars of The Office, at the height of its popularity, Paige as they were up and coming, it really seems that he was making something the mainstream could gel with a little bit more. Because no joke, this is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
You're that dipshit from the news. What's in your hand, you f***ing ***?
Hey! Don't butt!
Who do you think you're fooling? I just saw you. Wait.
It really feels like he was able to perfect his voice here and reflect the exact sense of humor he wanted to his audience. The film received a great audience reaction. However, its release was relatively small and only made back about a fourth of its production budget. It did fare better on home video and rental, but overall it failed to gain any mainstream attention.
However,
the film established that Gunn was someone who knew comics as a medium and how to inject comedy into them. And around this time, Gunn began work directing another project. You know the one. You know, the one that was actually a hit. The one that actually gelled with the public. A comedy starring Chris Pratt. It's movie 43! I got you so good. You thought I was gonna say Guardians. Yeah, it's Guardians. I don't need to talk about how big of a hit Guardians of the Galaxy was, how it's probably in your top 5 MCU movies, or how it's the first time Marvel really got experimental and was able to propel unknown characters like the Guardians into the mainstream. You know, I think what Disney did here was really impressive, making us feel emotion for a talking raccoon in a tree. Stuff like this isn't often done. I know, right? Very cool. Very cool. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Now, you know all that already. What I want to talk about is the style. Yeah, it's got its trappings of your typical superhero affair, the big battle at the end, the second act low point. But again, this is the first time Marvel kind of got weird with it, and it's something that not everyone is able to do. Like, I don't see any of the other Marvel directors at the time being capable of something like that. Or if they are, they're booted off. Gunn clearly reflected to Disney he's someone who understands comics and what makes them popular when making super. So when they wanted to make something a bit more out there, it was really a match made in heaven. Sure, he'd never worked on a movie that scale before, but he had enough resources and budget behind him where he could prove he was able to work that large. He just needed the right project to work on. He then went to work on the almost as good sequel, and upon a brief cancellation went over to Warner Brothers to make the Suicide Squad film. No, the other one, the good one. Then he went on to create the very successful spin-off show Peacemaker, and now he's the head of DC over at Warner Brothers. And to think it all started with this. Well, it started with this, but no, it pretty much started with this.
it's always impressive when a big budget film has a clear vision and style behind it, because there are so many people and aspects to a film demanding this and that maybe your voice gets muffled a little bit. But I think you just need the right project to show everyone that your voice is clear and marketable, and for Gunn, that was super. We need to encourage this. We need to encourage filmmakers being given more resources to bring their vision to a bigger project. Like the guy who made this industrial safety video, he has a clear voice of his own. Hollywood, you're missing out on a true auteur.